IDC's Herzlier's Lauder School of Government, Diplomacy and Strategy. However, prior to his assuming this current position, Amos led a distinguished career for more than 3 decades in the IDF. His last position was as Director of Policy and Political Military Affairs at the Ministry of Defense. Brigadier General in Reserve, Gilad dedicated most of his military career in the Intelligence Corps as Chief of Intelligence Research and Analysis Division. General Gilad was responsible for producing the National Intelligence Assessment and National Strategy. Major General Gilad held a number of other appointments and dealt quite frequently with the Palestinians, the PLO, and the peace process. So it's a real honor for us to host General Gilad today. We will ask Amos to speak for about 30 minutes, 40 minutes, and then we will open up to questions to the public. Please reserve your questions, or if you wish, please write them on the chat box, and we will try and get to as many questions as we can. Today's talk is about the deal of the century, Israel's third Arab country it has normalized ties with, and I'm going to pass over to General Gilad. Welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I would like to share with you my views about the third peace agreement, in a way. It's great, historic, dramatic event. To share with you my views about what's happening. Do you hear me?
That's right, we can hear. Yeah, we can hear. Keep going. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you. So that's really a great event. Dramatic one, historic one, to sign peace treaty with the third Arab country. I would like to share with you the Arab countries used to be our worst enemies, and they tried again and again since 48, the independence war, to exterminate Israel and to destroy it, and they failed again and again. It's a miracle. I'm not religious, but I do believe in secular miracles, that the Arab countries have become our security, defense, intelligence partners. Some of you for sure remember what Ben-Gurion used to say about Israel, that we needed, as a policy issue, to cooperate with the satellite states, Iran and Turkey, in order to be more powerful vis-a-vis the Arab countries. Today, Turkey, that used to be our excellent partner and friend, now is between enemy, real enemy, religious enemy. And Iran, instead of being our excellent friend and partner, they are now existential threat to Israel. They are determined to destroy Israel in 2 tracks, a nuclear and a regional siege on Israel based on ballistic capabilities that are aimed to destroy the Israeli population in due time. Now, I've served decades in the IDF and the Ministry of Defense, but my conclusion, you need to be powerful all the time. As long as you are powerful, you are here in the Middle East. The moment you lose it, either it's substantial or image, you are doomed. Now, thanks God, we are in the best position from security point of view. I know that usually you hear bad news from Middle East, but our relationship and peace with Egypt, Hashemat Kingdom of Jordan, and I hope in the coming weeks, agreement with UAE, United Arab Emirates, this agreement is really very, very much important. Why? Because we don't need to invest resources in order to be ready for the next war with the Arabs. We can focus on Iran. We don't need to deal with Arab countries that are huge. Look at the map. Saudi Arabia, Egypt, wide strategic depths. Instead of coping with them, we can focus on Iran. I'm repeating it because of the importance of it. much more important, we have become partners. It's very difficult for me to share with you details because I'm not allowed. However, I can share with you that with Egypt and Jordan, we do have strategic relationship. What does it mean, strategic relationship? Look at Jordan. Jordan gives Israel strategic depths from the Mediterranean until Iraq. Really deep. We are using so few forces in order to protect and defend our border along the Jordan River that is, the secret is not how many forces we do have, but how few forces we do have. And I cannot share with you. First of all, you don't believe it, and even you believe it, it's secret. That's based mainly on this unique cooperation and friendship with the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan. With Egypt, who could imagine? They tried again and again, kept trying to destroy Israel, and now we are partners. Allegedly, I am using frequently the word allegedly, because I cannot approve it myself. We do have cooperation against terror in Sinai, for example. I think very successful, allegedly, and other issues. Now, it means that in order to be powerful, you need to be smart. That's not federal offense to be smart. Sometimes I'm listening to some of my colleagues, and they do have impressions that to be smart is federal offense. It's not. Be smart. I am against using military power unless it is last resort. Against the image, we are a small country. Together with China, we are 1.5 billion people. The internal division is top secret. That's the image. Now we need to be smart. The results are as follows. Our borders are quiet, except the Gaza borders that are related to it. We used to have security, defense, and intelligence cooperation with Palestinian Authority, with Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan, with Egypt, with Saudi Arabia, with UAE, and now we are on our way to sign peace treaty with UAE and maybe other countries like Bahrain, like Oman, maybe Sudan. I'm not sure about Saudi Arabia. It's much more difficult. Now, that's, if you ask me, is it a dramatic event? Yes, it is. Is it a historic event? Yes, it is. Now here I would like to talk about some advantages and price. Thanks God, the UAE with United States have forced Israel to give up the annexation. I know that you have heard some different presentation. I just want to relate to it. Based on my long experience, it's really long experience. I'm sorry to present myself. I was the head of our, it's not research. It's a terrible name for my real job. My job was 5 years, intensive ones, to supply the strategic overview and assessment to the government, to the chief of staff, to the highest levels, independently. 5 years. I used to be the coordinator. It means like Abu Mazen, the sovereign of the Palestinians. I do have illusions that they would vote for me. I don't want to check it, but Abu Mazen was not elected as well, so we are equal. So in all my jobs, and there are many of them, and I published a book in Hebrew for the time being, I came to conclusion, we need to use force only as last resort, sorry to repeat it, and the annexation could lead us to disaster, real disaster, that's the word I'm using. I'm not using understatement of British English, I'm using Palestinian English. We used to have dictionaries that there was word Palestinian English, it means local English. I'm very blunt, this annexation could destroy Israel. Why? Because it's perceived by Palestinian Authority, by Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan, as direct provocation and threat to them. The Palestinian Authority is the result of political agreement between us and PLO. It's like the horizon, you know, if you get close to horizon, it gets far. However, if there is no horizon, they don't have raison d'etre to exist. So I've talked with them, and I'm fully convinced that the moment Prime Minister Netanyahu declared, if he declared annexation, they would cut all relationship with Israel. What does it mean? It means direct occupation of the Palestinians and the Palestinian Authority. What does it mean? Financially, it's between 10,000 billion shekel and the whole area, 70 billion shekel. We don't have other goals to spend money on. It could create Israel and the Palestinians as one entity. It means no more Jewish state, democratic and Jewish state. I don't want to live in such state. And we are on collision course with Gaza. We could find ourselves very quickly controlling another 2 million. So we would not be anymore, we will not be anymore Palestinian, Israel, Jewish democratic state. I don't know why Mr. Netanyahu has come to this conclusion to declare annexation, but thanks God the United States and UAE have prevented it. The failure of this vicious plan of annexation, one of the main reasons for UAE to sign agreement. With annexation, they would refuse. They will refuse. Without annexation, they will sign. It's precondition. I like it very much. I think they have saved us. I cannot imagine our soldiers chasing against Palestinians or dealing with conflicts amongst the Palestinians themselves. Today, it's done by the Palestinian Authority. But since the declaration, the annexation is on table, the prestige of the Palestinian Authority security forces is under decline. There is no logics at all, strategic one, behind this vicious plan. And the last remark about it, it could increase the prestige of the radicals that are against Israel, against peace, Iran, Turkey, and so on. So thanks God, we are not going to suffer from this annexation. I hope so. There are talks about suspension, all these games of English grammar. Sometimes I do like Trump. He's blunt. I'm not sure how much he knows grammar. He has just said, no more annexation, period. Now about the price. It is said that our Prime Minister has agreed. He denies it, but it does not mean it's not true. That he will give permission to US to sell the F-35, the stealth they are called, the 5th generation of planes to UAE. Now that's, he denies it, but not in a way that is deniable. What does it mean? We are not controlling United States against the image. However, United States, based on consensus, they are obliged to keep, by law, the qualitative military edge of Israel against any combination of potential enemies, rivals, or even friends today. There are two pillars in intelligence. Capabilities of the enemy or rival or friend today. Friend today might be enemy tomorrow. And intentions. The level of negative intentions is very low, but it might change anyway, very quickly, in a minute. That's the Middle East. You want examples? Again, Iran, Turkey, Muslim brothers in Egypt, who could imagine? And the capabilities. A United States of America is obliged to keep by law our qualitative military age. It means, practically, they have obliged publicly, even in UAE, it was declared that they will not sell F-35 and other weapons, very modern ones. The American technology is unbelievable, to Arab states in order to keep the qualitative military age. Now, what is the problem with UAE? UAE has 1 million citizens, plus 9 million Indians and others. Are we concerned about UAE? No. But based on our experience of Israel, the moment you give first to UAE, very quickly it moves to other countries. Like Egypt, they do have peace treaty with us, like Saudi Arabia, like Jordan. Now, can you imagine, let's say 10 years since now, that the mood and the winds in the Middle East change, and storms and tornadoes and hurricanes are visiting us, political ones. Is it out of question? Not at all. So we will face with our 9 million people, including minorities, the same level, operational level of the Arab countries, even today. Saudi Arabia does have 154, they will have F-15, some of them better than ours. Qatar, very hostile. They look friendly, but they are not. They will have even better F-15. And I can continue. I don't want to tire you with details. Now, our Prime Minister, what he has said, he says, I'm against selling UAE F-35. But he hasn't said, is avoiding saying, that he will do his best to use our, let's say, influence in the United States to prevent it. It's like some lawyer sends you a letter, all rights reserved. Okay. There is difference when you prevent it. He hasn't said he will not prevent it. I do believe more the Arabs and the United States when they say that it's on table. Unfortunately, very sorry to say it. I'm very worried. It's unacceptable. He hasn't consulted with our IDF, Ministry of Defense, the same like with the Egyptian submarines that he has decided alone. This pattern, we are still democracy, or at least officially. He cannot do it. So he denies it. I trust him. However, I trust him, but I'm not convinced that he hasn't promised it. Because I do believe, based on my experience to the Arabs and to the Americans. Anyway, you cannot hide it. You cannot hide sales of aircraft to anybody. Altogether, if this is the price, it's scandal. It's risking our national security. It's risking our qualitative military age. That's intolerable and unacceptable. I would like to share with you about Iran. That's not the subject, but some remarks. Iran, in spite of unique economic difficulties in Iran itself, inside Iran, they are determined to continue their vicious plans that will enable them to destroy Israel. It's based on nuclear. Why nuclear is so dangerous? Why? Because the moment they get nuclear, they will threaten us, they will frighten us to death. The image of Israel will destabilize. We do enjoy, I'm not sure you know it, image of being superpower that can defeat any combination of enemies. It's a matter of substance and image. Sometimes, by the way, image is much more important than substance because you never know what is the reality behind it. And we enjoy today unbelievable. There is no nuclear state in the Middle East that can threaten us because we destroyed the Iraqi project, we have destroyed the Syrian project, we have delayed the Iranian one, and the Libyan project was failed by the MI6 in UK. They have done fantastic work. By the way, the cooperation and the quality of the intelligence services in UK, unbelievable. It's like British dramas. They are the best in the world. The intelligence services in UK, they do have the best quality of collection and assessment, without details. And MI5, of course, I don't want to quarrel with them. So, altogether, if Iran gets nuclear, we will lose our image. We will look like Samsung after the visit in the barber shop. And the second track is siege on Israel from Lebanon, Syria, based on missiles, rockets. What is the difference between missile and rocket? Missiles are accurate. Namely, they can hit the Prime Minister office. And rockets are not accurate, but quantities of 150,000. They are determined to be able to attack Israel from Lebanon, from Syria, from Iraq and Iran. We are not in the Holocaust today. We are powerful. Allegedly, we are doing our best to prevent it. How? We are using excellent Air Force, excellent intelligence. We are hitting them allegedly very frequently, and we are very successful, it seems so. We are successful operationally, not strategically. What is the difference? Operationally, I mean, I would like to conclude this issue by saying the agreement with UAE is very important. However, it's enhancing and cementing our relationship with Sunni Arab world that you could only dream of it. It's strengthening our capabilities to cope with the main threat of Iran, but I hope the price is not the F-35. That's violation of the basic equation of power. About US and the other and Europe. US under Trump is like an excellent friend of Israel. However, there are some failures of United States. Security Council, there is going to be extension of the sanctions. I mean, that's what United States has asked and was denied by overwhelming majority of all members of Security Council besides the Dominican Republic, very important country, United States is too much isolated because of the policy and the conflict between Trump and Europe and so on. I'm very concerned about it. I don't have time to elaborate it because I don't want to cross the 30 minutes. About Corona in Israel, because of failure of implementation of policy, we are not in the best position. In Britain, what happened, we know. It's a matter of leadership. In Israel, it's the same. We do have power army, we do have power organs for emergency because we are built for emergency and we are not using them because of politics. And the main issue we are suffering is economy, economy, and economy. Nobody could imagine that we would suffer such economic difficulties. Mainly it's because of poor policy. Some words about Russia. The Russians are a strategic ally of Iran, not of Israel. But in Syria, allegedly, they are giving free hand to Israel to attack Iran because they don't want Iran to be too powerful in Syria. And on the other hand, they don't want to be involved physically in tension or violent conflict in Syria. So if Israel is ready to do the job, from their point of view, it's okay. With Gaza, we are in, now it's very sensitive because Hamas, they are terrible terror organization. What is terrible? They are determined to destroy Israel. They want to be alternative to Palestinian Authority. That's another reason why I'm against annexation, because if we declared annexation, it would for sure enhance Hamas. And Hamas is an ideological movement, religious ideological movement, and the main goal is to destroy Israel through terror. You don't hear about terror because thanks God, unlike 20 years ago, our counterintelligence, like equivalent to MI5 in UK, is very efficient. 500 times they keep trying to murder Israelis, mainly Jews, and they fail. It's unbelievable, this achievement. But they are continuing. And now there are problems along the border because they are terror organization, but also government. And in Gaza, 364 square kilometers, living 2.1 million people, Palestinians. They are poor, misery, and so on. So they want to improve the conditions of life, but they are terror organization. So they are pressing on us. We do have two options, either to give them the money or whatever, or to cope with them. To cope with them, if our government gives order to the IDF to destroy Hamas, they will be destroyed. But then who will take over Gaza? Who will run the life of 2.2 million Palestinians? Who will pay the budget? Who will take care of education, sewage, water, whatever? Our army. That's not. So we need to delay it as long as we can. But they are attacking us, and maybe we will lose our tolerance. Politically, today we are waiting for the decision of the Prime Minister, mainly to delay the crisis for another some months. Nobody knows. I think that it will be delayed, the crisis. However, that's not solution. We are living in tragedy. Every some months we do have election. We are spending our budget for nothing instead of taking care of our people, our citizens. It's crazy. So altogether, the security situation of Israel is excellent. Our border are most of them secured, and the terror is defeated. However, we do have threats like Iran. It's like heavy clouds coming to visit you. Unlike weather, you can cope with it. We do have excellent defense systems, intelligence systems, and offensive systems. About cyber, from time to time, the Iranians trying to attack us. The last time they attacked our water system. We prevented it, and allegedly we attacked one of the most sensitive sites in Iran, in the area of Bandar Abbas, the most important port. It's allegedly in Iran. There are other aspects that I haven't mentioned. Turkey, it's always hostile, provocative. I mean, it's unbelievable. They used to be our best friend. That's the Middle East, unfortunately. Libya is unsolved crisis. And the tension between Greece and Turkey and Cyprus is growing. So thank you very much. I rest my case, 30 minutes, and I'm ready to answer any question you have in mind.
Amos, thank you so much for that brief and broad overview of the current situation in Israel. I am sure each one of those issues that you touched upon is just the tip of the iceberg, and you could go on for hours on each topic. We are sure of that. But since we only have an hour, we will try to touch a little bit more in depth on a few issues. We've had a few questions. What I'd like to start, the first one is to talk a little bit about annexation. You have very clearly set out your case for why you believe annexation is a bad thing for Israel. So politically putting that aside, one of the reasons, or one of the potential positive issues that came out for annexation was essentially forcing the hand of the Palestinians to move forward with peace. The Palestinians to date have felt that the status quo is somehow benefiting them. Israel needs to try to show them by doing nothing and not advancing, they suffer as well. They will lose out. If you look over time, they've only lost out. So Israel's saying, we can't make peace at the moment simply by negotiation because you're not coming to the table. Let's now force your hand by doing this annexation, which you believe is a bad thing. But did the annexation in its own right not do exactly that? Did it not force the hand of peace? Maybe not through the front door, but maybe through the back door. By having this agreement with UAE and potentially other Arab countries is peace in its own right. And secondly, might isolate the Palestinians to say, we are losing out if we don't come to the table.
You know, sometimes it's excellent logics in Antarctica. No, really. If I needed to write PhD thesis, I would write the same words that you're using. Only in Antarctica or Greenland. It depends. It's so baseless you cannot imagine. We do enjoy today in the West Bank the best security situation. I'm impressed, and I'm not cynical about one issue: security of our citizens. To be under terror attacks, and you know it in UK, it's unbelievable, and we used to suffer dramatically. Now, today we do enjoy full control of the West Bank, and we used to have, unique cooperation with the Palestinian Authority security forces. Why it's so important? There is conflict between two Hamulas families in Hebron. Who tackled it? Palestinian Authority. Otherwise, we needed to send our soldiers. For that, you recruit your soldiers, our children, to deal with conflicts, violent conflicts. Blocking roads. Many, you know, the Israelis are not so disciplined, and many of them are crossing the A area and entering Palestinian towns. Why? Because everything is cheap there. And many times they are caught by terrorists, by whoever, violent people. And in 10 minutes, they are back, they are sent back to our authorities. All these examples show the importance. Along our border, who is protecting our border? IDF between Jordan and Israel. It's Jordanian army, armed forces, and intelligence. We are giving them many benefits. I don't want to talk about it. So if Jordan perceives it as direct provocation to what is known in Arabic, Watan al-Badil, they suspect Watan al-Badil, the translation is alternative state. What does it mean? To destroy the Hashemite kingdom and to give Jordan to the Palestinians. So our border will not be secured anymore. And we will spend billions of shekels about what? About unnecessary conflicts. In democracy, you cannot endanger yourself to enter unnecessary conflicts. I don't want to mention the history of UK. Second World War, Churchill, and it was right. We need to create conflicts that it gives what? If I declare annexation, there is no one Palestinian that will come to table. You're totally wrong. The Palestinians are not impressed by using force against them. It's like somebody wants to get married. It's a habit in Middle East. You rape a woman and then you get married to her. It's not in our area. Do you think that if we force them by an unilateral annexation, they will come to table? You are absolutely wrong. I'm based on my experience as Major General in many jobs and long career, my judgment is direct threat to annexation to our national security. Even one advantage I cannot find. It's all dirty politics.
Okay.
And thanks God, it's not working.
Okay, thank you for that. Could I ask you then what the questions come up, what the next step is? both the Jewish people in the diaspora, as well as the Israelis, as well as the Palestinians, need some kind of realistic hope, some kind of realistic plan to strive towards. Even if no one's agreeing at the moment, at least we need that.
We do have cooperation, we do have coordination, and we do have the horizon of political arrangement. That's the best situation.
Is that a two-state solution? Because there's many states in one state.
Yes. At least this is a horizon we have agreed upon. If you want to change the rules of the game unilaterally, we will not. We won't be successful.
So do you believe that the two-state solution, well, however it looks, we don't need to go into the specifics because there's no two people that agree what it looks like, but a two-state solution is the most viable route to peace with the Palestinians?
No. You are simplifying everything too much, oversimplifying. I'm coming from the realistic world. I do have convenient world that I can live with the Palestinians based on cooperation, with the Jordanians, with the Egyptians, with the Saudis, with the UAE. Well, look what happens. UAE is forcing Israel not to change the concept of two-state solution. Otherwise, they will not sign any agreement. So what happens based, our Prime Minister has declared, I will annex the West Bank in 3 days. It's not reasonable that our Prime Minister declares something that is not happening. It's hurting our prestige. What is the alternative? We used to have Horizon. Horizon is good as long as it exists. And we did have cooperation and friendship with the Palestinian Authority security services. Now they are not getting money for salaries. They are getting bitter. They are getting angry. We are losing our power in the West Bank, and we could lose our unique cooperation with the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan. For what? For declaration? For politics? It will force the Palestinians to come to table? You don't know that. I've spent long years. It will never happen.
So let's say Amos Gilad, Bibi Netanyahu and Benny Gantz come and say, we don't want to be prime minister. Amos Gilad, we want you to be prime minister tomorrow morning.
There is no feasibility it will happen.
Well, listen, it's the Middle East. Miracles happen.
No. Even in the Middle East, it will not happen.
Let's say this happens. How do you bring peace? What's the final solution to peace with the Palestinians?
You are in the wrong direction.
Okay.
I belong to the ones, I don't believe there will be peace between us and them.
Right.
Because of many reasons. However, I do believe in very convenient environment of security. If I was prime minister, I would declare in the first minute, I am against annexation, I'm against hurting Jordan, I'm against hurting Palestinian Authority, I'm against threatening our relationship with the Arab world, and I would like to focus on Iran and not to enhance them, because the option is to be more radical. If we push the Palestinians to the corner, they will be more radical, will join Iran and Turkey. The scenario you are portraying is baseless, 100% feasibility.
Okay. Let's turn our attention to Lebanon. We've seen some recent events in Lebanon. Do you think there is going to be any change on the ground? And is there any chance of Israel having any better relations with Lebanon, or are we heading towards another war with Hezbollah?
Lebanon is hologram. There is no state Republic of Lebanon. Republic of Lebanon, they do have president, prime minister, parliament, even ambassador in United Nations. The problem, there is no Lebanon. It's hologram. There is no state. Hezbollah swallowed Lebanon. There is Hezbollah at the expense of them. Even the disaster will not change anything. As long as there is no power that will kick out Hezbollah and Iran from Lebanon, there is no hope. I mean, we need to be prepared for bloody confrontation with them. we are relying now on deterrence, mainly based on our power. There is no Lebanon. And the cynical stand of some European countries that there is difference between Hezbollah, Nasrallah as terrorist or Nasrallah as political party, it's unbelievable cynical. Nasrallah is the same. It's like you used to say Hitler is political or military. He was one leader of vicious entity.
Okay, well, that's hopeful. Let me ask you another question. There's a question's come up as what our relationship with China has been, currently is, and what do you think our relationship with China will be going forward with all the problems?
Look, China, superpower, we know it, but UK and Israel belong to the hemisphere of United States. The Secretary of Defense of the United States was asked, what is the main threat to United States national security? And he said there are three threats. First, China. Second, China. Third, China. You cannot allow yourselves to quarrel with US about China. Their ambitions are known. Their nature is known. In Israel, we used to have dramatic crisis with the United States about China. They accused us 10 years ago of cooperating with China, and they almost cut the security defense cooperation between Israel and the United States. US support and friendship with Israel is considered as major pillar in our national security. And I'm sure you draw the same lessons.
Yeah, absolutely. Professor Gilad, General Gilad, I'd like to ask you a question. We've seen almost 4 years of Trump. From that, we've seen, leaving his current political internal position aside and other world politics, for Israel, in the majority of terms, we've seen a lot of positives and a lot of support and a friendship, whether you agree with what he's done or not, but we've seen that. We've also seen some major moves, whether it be the Trump peace plan, whether it be Jerusalem, the embassy, this latest deal with the UAE. So we've seen some major steps when it comes to the USA. If Trump gets in for a second term presidents are free of their shackles. They are free politically. They're not striving for the third term. What can we expect from Trump when it comes to Israel in a second term?
It depends how you analyze it. Emotionally, you are right. I'm not sure analytically you are right. If United States, totally isolated, fails to extend sanctions on Iran, for me, it's weakness. It's weakening Israel. If United States withdraws forces from Middle East without any reason while betraying the Kurds, is a weakness. If I need the Russian agreement or consent to attack Iran in Syria and I cannot use American influence, it's terrible. If United States supplies or sells the best aircraft in the world to Arabs, it's not good for Israel. I'm impressed by data and by real analysis, and there are many loopholes. And I'm not excluding that Trump, based on his personality, will sign in the next term agreements that will not serve Israel with Iran. He's ready to sign an agreement with everybody, with North Korea and so on. Iran, I mean, any agreement that he might sign with Iran will not include ballistic capabilities, missiles, rockets, terror, and so on. So my recommendation is to wait until 3rd of November.
Right, okay. Can we come back to Iran, please? As we all have heard from you and from others that Iran is Israel's major threat. To what extent that threat is, we're not quite sure, but we know it's a major threat. We don't think it's existential, but it's a major threat. We've also heard how Israel deals in deterring Iran strategically and certainly using delay tactics, whether it's viruses or other ways of delaying Iran's route to nuclear weapons. But for us, both for Israel and for the Jews around the world, our fear is delaying Iran enough? Are those tactics going to work to stop Iran from creating those weapons? And are we fearing too much? Or can we deal with Iran if it comes to it, if it comes to the point where they do have nuclear?
I'm not sure that Iran will not become existential threat. It depends whether we can prevent the nuclear, the combination of vicious regime, rogue regime, that is determined to destroy Israel on religious basis, combined with military nuclear capabilities, that will embody existential threat. We must prevent it. They remind me, in a way, the Nazis in the 30s. We must not underestimate them. We need to take them as a main threat. They are today's strategic threat, and they might become existential threat. And if Iran gets nuclear, all Arab countries, at least the most important ones, will follow them. That's intolerable and unacceptable. Today we are living in the most convenient strategic environment. We are not facing military nuclear threat after we have destroyed Saddam, Bashar Assad, and so on. Now, Iran needs the same attitude as, they are members of the United Nations. And they keep saying Israel must disappear. We need to take them very seriously.
Right.
That's my message.
Okay. And then just following on, Israel has the capabilities to deal with Iran should it need to.
We do have a variety of capabilities that for known reasons I am not going to specify.
Okay. That should keep us sleeping well at night. Thank you. The recent deal with the United Arab Emirates, will that help us strategically against Iran? Or are we helping them?
There is no contradiction. Even marriage is based, for the time being, on mutual utility. Not the agreement is doing it. We are having a unique security cooperation with UAE for a long time. Right. The fact that we are cementing our good and excellent relationship with the Sunni Arab world, that enables us to focus on Iran and giving us many advantages, including resources and other issues. So that's why I've opened by saying it's very important to achieve.
Right. Yes, we noticed that recently Israel sent some tennis players to Dubai for security purposes. It was very helpful. Moving along then to the rest of Europe. Where is Europe in cooperation? Let's talk about the countries. We know the UK and Israel is very closely cooperative when it comes to intelligence and military and other areas. What are the other countries? We can talk about Germany as well, but where is Israel working closely within Europe on security? Because the front pages just say Europe don't like Israel. But are we working with those countries at all behind the scenes?
Let's begin with UK. I was lucky. I was responsible for all our strategic relationship with the world. And UK used to be one of my main goals. Can you imagine that United Kingdom has prevented supplying spare parts to our Air Force? We were in very terrible positions that we couldn't take off. And then I remember my talks with our colleagues, and I used to tell them, what are you doing? You want us to fail, whatever? What are you doing? Then there was political change. Mr. Cameron has become the prime minister with 300 seats in the parliament. And we have made dramatic progress in, I don't want to go to details because I'm not sure I'm allowed to, in our security defense cooperation. The intelligence cooperation is unique. because the intelligence quality, the quality of intelligence services, namely MI6 and the SIGINT, is unbelievable excellent. In UK, you have the unique talent how to analyze intelligence and how to collect it. I considered UK is, well, I was lucky to have such cooperation with them, really, for a long time. With Germany, against history, we do have the developing cooperation. And other, with Greece and Cyprus today. So we do have, with Italy, we do have very impressive cooperation. It's not like with the United States, but very impressive. Anyway, security is not enough to describe it. Culturally, historically, we belong to Europe. Right. Even the EU that is considered as hostile to Israel is contributing huge billions of dollars to our science. And that's equivalent to national security cooperation. What we are doing in return, our intelligence is excellent vis-a-vis Daesh, IS, ISIS, vis-a-vis Iran, vis-a-vis other challenges. And Europe by itself is very important. The friendship with UK is uniquely important. And thanks God that Corbyn is not the prime minister, but Johnson.
Yes.
Could make dramatic difference. I was so much concerned that he would be prime minister. Instead of it, he's in pension. That's better.
Right. Very good. Thank you for that. One final question, if I may. Looking ahead at politics in Israel, do you think we are, A, going to continue the agreement between Netanyahu and Gantz will take over in just over a year's time? B, we will be heading for a fourth election? Or C, Netanyahu will continue in his position? And if Benny Gantz does take over one way or another, what are we going to look forward to when it comes to relationship with the Palestinians?
I am upset. I am absolutely confident that Netanyahu will never allow Gantz to enter the PM office in Jerusalem. Right. Only as a guest. I mean, if he wants to drink tea with him, that's possible. If he dreams to be prime minister, he's living in a different world. Maybe the election will not take place next month, but it will take place in the next 6 months. Netanyahu is determined to defeat any possibility that he will be put on real trial and he will be sent to jail. So he's determined to destroy even the courts, the authorities, the chiefs of police. We don't have chief of police for 2 years. We don't have attorney general for long months. Gantz will never see the prime minister. He's too naive. I think he caused dramatic damage to Israel by splitting the opposition. He promised many promises to change the quality of life of Israel. And he believes that Netanyahu would facilitate his entrance to the PM office. And he's living in La La Land. Today, I think he becomes sober. So I don't want to answer the question, what will happen about the Palestinians, because he will never enter the PM office.
Right. And if there's a fourth election, whenever it is, who's going to be elected?
It depends when it happens, because Netanyahu personally looks like he's taking care of his personal issues only. Yeah. We are suffering from unemployment of 1 million people. Who could imagine? We did have in our pocket 150 billion shekels. The economy flourished. The flights were overbooked. The restaurants, you couldn't find even one seat. It's all malmanagement of the corona, from the economic dimension, from political dimension, from organizational dimension. If if there is alternative, I'm sure they will, he will need to be, I mean, there must be some accountability. I'm not optimistic about it. We have become strange in a way. So it depends when the election takes place. Today we are waiting for the decision of Prime Minister around 7 p.m. UK clock time.
Right.
Otherwise, if he does not take a decision, tomorrow at midnight Israel time, the Knesset dissolves and there is election. I don't think he will do it, but he wants election in the coming months, let's say next March.
General Amos Gilad, you have been hugely informative and a professional and a gentleman, and I thank you for your time. We are hugely honored to have had you here for this hour, and please God, one day you can come over and in person give us a fantastic talk, just as you have.
In my dream, the last time I was 2nd of November, the Balfour Declaration, I met with the MPs of the Conservatives.
Yes.
And I made some speech. I felt so happy. Since then, we are living in different, it's like a biblical event.
We are. Well, as you know, the Zionist Federation of the UK and Ireland was named on the Balfour Declaration.
I know.
And we
That's why
continue
I'm
to celebrate. Thank you.
Really?
It's not because of me. The Chaim Weizmann.
No, it's because of you, but because of the Balfour Declaration.
And then maybe one of our Balfour celebrations, you'll come and enhance it for us.
Absolutely a great honor.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. We won't take up any more of your time.
All the best for all of you.
Thank you so much. Keep well and please keep in touch with us. To
Absolutely.
all those
thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. I've been Paul Charney, Chairman of the Zionist Federation. We have more webinars and Zoom interviews to come in the coming weeks. Please keep in contact with us. We are hugely grateful to General Gilad. And all of you go well, stay safe, and just remember, Israel is and always will be the Jewish homeland. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul.